Yeah, so welcome to, again, another bit with another time with Bruce.
AI Village will be bigger next year, we promise.
Yes. In no small part thanks to the man sitting next to me. So we got to have more room for folks. But this talk is intended to be an incredibly informal, just conversation. Obviously with Bruce, I'm gonna, kind of get it started and everything. But eventually we'd definitely like to have some more engagement and everything. So you guys, please feel free to, hop in if at any point I've become boring. So, Bruce, yesterday Bruce was amazing and joined a panel with regard to dual use whenever it comes to, within the context of AI models. So one of the things that I personally wanted to ask, was, after yesterday's conversation, I am a big fan of more institutional approaches to ensuring that at least we, put our best foot forward, especially with regulatory components. So I'm curious about kind of some of the nuances associated with, trying to figure out how we're going to move forward with that.
Did anyone go to the talk in the Policy Village at 11 with the Anthropic people talking about, did anybody feel better having left that talk? No, right? Like, what the hell? For those who weren't there, this is sort of Anthropic talking about how they deal with, problematic queries. What we learned is they're watching everything everybody does. That's thing one we learned. Two, they said they're happy to take comments, but not right then, which was a little disturbing. They took no questions. And they talked about a variety of things they do. There's stuff. Sort of what we know in cybersecurity. They have prevention, they have detection, they have response. There's some stuff they do to try to prevent problematic queries. They detect. They'll whitelist some people as being allowed, right? If you're a security researcher, maybe you get to do things. They do investigate. They do ban people. They had banned some number of million accounts. I couldn't tell, because you can't ask questions, whether distillation was in their list of bad things, and if it was, what percentage was distillation. I think that would have been interesting. The hard part of all of this, to me, is the fact that there's so many other ways that AI is working, right? I think every model here is an open source model running locally. We know these, 6 months behind? Right? China releases K3 and it is at the top tier, and they're giving it away. So you can run it locally if you got a cluster and it has no guardrails. The really question is, what can we do in this world where this is so small d democratic and so distributed? And things are moving so fast. If OpenAI and Anthropic perfectly solve the problem, it's been solved for 3 months. And that's it. So this makes this a really hard problem. And why I am so much on, we need the good AIs on the defensive. Because I don't see a policy way to do that. I want that to be a policy way. I'm a big fan of regulation. I want these companies regulated the hell out of. But we're going to need a solution that isn't assuming that we have a closed market. Right? It's not going to be like nuclear power. It's not going to be it's going to be more like anyone around for the encryption debates of the 90s? Right? Remember when encryption was a munition? It's going to be like that. Right? Encryption is a munition, so US can export, so all the cool stuff comes out of Europe. It's going to be the same way. And those kind of bans aren't going to work. So I think we as a community have to figure some of this out, because we're good at open is better. We're good at, being able to examine something is better. And here again, I think that ethos is going to be, is no alternative that's any good.
So, to that end, I know that you have been through a ton of the different, I guess, moments in which the security community has been able to kind of pull the reins back and figure out what we can do to move forward. Do you have any indications, do you have any notions at this point of kind of what we may be able to do, I guess kind of what we could do?
One of the things that's hard is the speed here. This is fastest adoption of anything we've ever seen. And the way I want you to think of this, there's a lot of talk about how this technology will work. Think about the Industrial Revolution. That was the first time that we as a species could consume calories outside our body at scale. And that change over, a 50-year period made possible like everything you could see. Everything we can see is a product of the Industrial Revolution and being able to consume calories outside our body at scale. This is going to be the first time we can do cognition outside our bodies at scale. And I think the changes will be equally profound. So it's not going to be like other times when we've had to deal with full disclosure, right? Vulnerabilities. Well, how do we keep them secret? Do we disclose them? We as a community struggled with that in the early 2000s, and we came up with responsible disclosure, and then we made it work. It won't be like encryption in the 90s, where basically the government gave up, and encryption is now freely exportable. Right? Because we learned from Snowden they had other ways in. No one breaks the math anymore. Software sucks, so why bother breaking the math? This is going to be more profound, and it's going to happen faster. It's going to be noisier. Right? The debates you'll hear whether AI will create jobs or eliminate jobs, the answer is it's going to do both. And the problem is the same problem we had last time, this revolution, is that the jobs that it creates are ill-suited for the people whose jobs got lost. So you have this massive job training mismatch between what was needed before and what is needed now. We're all going to be living through this. I think what's interesting is that software is a harbinger. How we as a community deal with software replacing versus augmenting, we're the first community that is really being hit with this. It'll be the legal community next. It'll be doctors next. They're all coming. We are dealing with this now. So in a sense, we are the test case for society on how you deal with AI being good at what you do. Some of this is going to be compared to what? I think you have to have a lot of conversations about that. When I think about AI doctors, right? AI being physicians' assistants, I think that's going to be a huge, I think it'll be really good at it. It knows all the medical research. It could read the tests better. It can handle more complex things. So one of two things happens. You imagine a doctor with an AI assistant, and this doctor could be a better doctor, can be more empathetic, can spend more time with their patients, right? Just, be a better doctor for their patients. Or the company who owns the medical practice fires 4 doctors and gives the one remaining doctor 5 times the patients. Right? Both of those are possible, and that is not a tech issue, that is a capitalism issue. Right? That will happen in different places. And I have this essay, which I'm trying to place somewhere. Guardian said no, I'm still trying to place it, which talks about what is a tech problem and what is a capitalism problem. And a lot of the things we look at as tech problems are capitalism problems. And we have to know the difference. But I think about a doctor even if an AI is not as good a doctor, imagine a rural part of the planet where there is no doctor. Where right now there's a nurse who had 2 weeks of training. An AI doctor assisting that nurse would be fantastic. And it's way different than medicine in the US or Canada or Europe. So a lot of upheavals. But I'm not sure the past is relevant because this is so different. And I look more towards the Industrial Revolution as the past that's relevant here. And that is incredibly, but we had bubbles. You had the railroad bubble, you had all sorts of bubbles based on overbelief of the technology. And we're going to see those again. I actually, if anybody here for OpenAI and Anthropic, I think they have no viable business model. Absolutely none. I wonder if their IPO window has closed. It's too late. I mean, think about it. I mean, several things are happening. One, these things are commodities. I mean, you could swap out your model tomorrow. I mean, and no one's going to notice. They all speak in English. They cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make, and they have to make back all of that money in 4 months because then the next model comes along. And China is giving away their models for geopolitical status. How do you compete with Kami K3 when it's just as good as you and it's being given away? I mean, I cannot think of a business model. The businesses to me are in the use. They're in the value add. It's going to be whoever figures out how to do a good AI doctor. And they'll plug in whatever model works. Doesn't even matter what model they're using. But there's going to be a whole lot of doctoring middleware, which the value is in the harnesses, in the middleware, in the user interface, sort of all of those things. The models seem to be completely commodity. And I don't think those companies have no way of making money. I think data centers disappear. Right? Data centers assume that the models are being run in the cloud, which clearly they're not. And anybody who's concerned about costs is going to run models in the cloud. Everybody doing AI coding is realizing we better download our own models because it's too expensive. So data centers now look like fiber did 20 years ago. Difference being that fiber we've been lighting up over the decades as we started needing it. These data centers, the chips will be obsolete in 6 months. This is what's propping up the U.S. stock market. Yikes. Am I being helpful?
Listen, absolutely. No, immensely helpful, and I'm going to continue to build on that, which is, at this point, what I'm curious about is, obviously, we have, one of the things that at least internally is a big thing is, if we can make something an engineering problem, we can sort it, right? If it is a policy problem, that's a different beast entirely.
Yeah, but...
And what I'm curious about is how do we make the defender, basically how do we make enabling defenders a technical problem rather than having to rely on the policy problem?
They're both. I mean, this is the lesson of Snowden, 100%. Like, we all believed that tech can triumph over policy. I mean, that was the conceit of PGP, of all the tools we built. What Snowden showed us is that policy can triumph over tech. Right? You have policies that just make the tech useless, and we need both. You cannot. So I mean, right now there's someone who's being charged with evidence tampering because he's using Graphite OS, right, on his phone. He gets out of the country, and he's not charged with anything. His phone is seized. He's asked for the password. He gives them the delete command, and they are charging him with evidence tampering. Now, it's a good question. What is the evidence? What is the crime? What's going on here? But there again, policy is likely to triumph here over tech. And it's really hard to build tech tools that avoid that. I mean, there are countries where having Signal on your phone gets you arrested. Right? It doesn't matter how good Signal is. I mean, when I teach policy, I tell people, if that is the case, use WhatsApp. WhatsApp at least gives you cover. It's not as good, but everyone uses WhatsApp. You can't be arrested for using WhatsApp. You're just like regular. You just want to avoid paying exorbitant text messaging fees. So these are all tech/policy. When I do that division, like what is a tech problem, what is a democracy problem, I'm trying to make that distinction, but solutions invariably cover both. we're not going to have a solution where there's no policy and the tech just triumphs. Because it's not going to work. And it's not going to work the other way either. So that's hard for us. We like tech tools. We like the certainty of tech. We dislike the uncertainty of policy. I have disliked the uncertainty of policy for decades. But right now I teach cybersecurity policy at a public policy school. I teach at the Harvard Kennedy School and at the University of Toronto. And sort of I joke that I teach cryptography to students who deliberately did not take math as undergraduates. And that is what I do, because I need these people to know enough tech to be able to craft good tech policy. And this is hard. The best players we have right now are the EU. And we can complain about what they're doing, but they're freaking trying. And you've got GDPR, which I think is pretty good en masse. Digital Markets Act, Digital Services Act. There's another one I'm forgetting, the EU AI Act. I mean, they are trying to regulate big tech when no one else is. I mean, in the US, we really have an oligarchy more than anything else, where the money gets to decide the rules. And these are bigger problems than us, right? This is money in politics, this is income inequality, all the things that are broken. But it's the world we're in. And I want a lot of us to get involved in policy. It's really important.
So I come from, in a previous life, I had a policy situation going on. I went to law school, and all of that led me to realizing, of course, that kind of the impact that we have as engineers versus policy, that there was a crazy, it was very disparate. So I know, coming from the policy and legal world to the tech world, how challenging that was. And so now what you're talking about is the inverse, right?
So we need both. So the phrase for this is public interest tech. If you don't know it, and I maintain a resources page, publicinteresttech.com with hyphens, with all of the resources I found. We need tech people in policy. We need policy people in tech. Right? We need the crossover. It can't be that the two sides aren't talking to each other. I mean, this is where you get, I don't even remember when a couple of years ago, Mark Zuckerberg's testifying for Senate, and some senator asked, how do you make money? We can't have that. That's bad. Right? We can't have people making the laws not understanding how cryptocurrency works, how encryption works. I mean, just like I can't have people here not understanding how policy works. Right? That if you come up with a clever hack on the law, the judges are going to say, no. It doesn't matter if your hack works. The judges are going to say no. And that's what judges do, and that's okay. Right? A clever hack of the law doesn't get you out of jail. Unless you're rich, but that's different. But that's a policy hack, that's a technical hack. So this crossover is vital. Great essay by C.P. Snow in the 1960s talks about this. Right? But today, right, tech policy is policy. Everything is technical. And you think about what we have here. We have a voting village, because elections are technical. Right? There's aerospace. Everything is here. Cars are here. Because cars are now computers. Right? Everything is a computer now. Right? So our expertise matters everywhere. And the way these things are being created matters. So, we all can't, go join a congressional staff, but some of us can. Tech Congress. It's an organization that puts techies on congressional staffs. Spend a year doing that, and you'll learn a lot about the way the country works. Or do that in the EU, or somewhere else, or in Canada, wherever you happen to be. It feels really important.
So, one of the things that I found is challenging is, right, so as you all know, the policy, the legal world, it is insanely protectionist, right? like it exists because of how protectionist it's able to be. Whenever it comes to kind of the barrier to figuring out what it is like to, as you mentioned in your book, right? What citizenship looks like, right? What it means to be able to interact in a world where, of course, like we are all used to, being able to find the things that we want to learn online. And if we can't, then we'll find folks like you, right? And some of the folks in the crowd that, can kind of share that information. So I guess right now, how can we kind of find some guidance there? I mean, of course, you had mentioned with the EU, there's a historical precedent there with some of the engagement.
Yeah, it is hard. I think about public interest law as so I don't know if you know, public interest law was actually invented in the 1960s and 70s, mostly the Ford Foundation. They invented the field of public interest law. They funded law clinics at universities around the country. They funded jobs at places like ACLU and other organizations so that people who wanted to go into public interest law were able to. And now, there is this entire career path. And a few years ago, Harvard Law School, where 20% of all Harvard law grads don't go into law firms, don't work for big tech, big corporations, they go into public interest law. Harvard Law School had a soul-searching seminar because that percentage was so low. If you think about the graduates of the MIT Computer Science program, how many go into public interest tech? Is it 0 or is it 2? Like, we don't have a career path. I think people want to. I think there is a need, especially among young grads, to make a difference. But we don't have an ecosystem to catch them, to train them. So everybody who does this is an exception and is exceptional. That makes it hard. There are public interest positions. EFF does this, or other organizations do this. They're few and far between. But we are seeing more of them. Now, I knew the person who did cybersecurity for Human Rights Watch. And that's a tough job, because if you get it wrong, someone dies. That is a really hard job. Someone needs to do that job. And we need people who will take their expertise and work at a public interest organization. Will work to try to better policy. Or will work try to teach that or to bridge that gap in some other way. Big tech does hire these people. I think that's good. Google, you have to correct me on this, I get the story right. So there was always this notion of embedding legal counsel in projects early. Right? So if there's a project being developed at a big tech company, often there is an in-house counsel who is part of that team. Because if you do screw-ups, right, you do screw-ups late, they're expensive. If you do them early, you can fix them. So having someone with legal experience on a development team early is good. So what I heard about Google is they actually did that with a policy person. That if you're in some experimental Google project, there'll be a policy person embedded in your team, because again, you want to surface potential problems early when they're easy to fix or easy to make the easy design changes that gets around potential policy issues, then do it at the far end when you're already finished and sort of trying to feel the thing. There's a way where a public interest tech person can work, like in a big tech company. So I like that. I like all these ways to engage in that bridging tech and policy. And I think a lot of the work here does that too. Some of us are just hackers in isolation. A lot of us work more in the real world, where policy matters too. Did I get it right?
You did.
Excellent.
Absolutely. No, and to that end, right, one of the things that is important is ensuring that we prioritize things like, being human, right? In a world where we are working in major companies, right, where the next big thing is what, we're aiming towards. So to that end, as far as the way that we could continue to engage. So we have the policy village here, right? We have AI village, we have any number of different villages, but one of the critical parts of this, especially that you've seen during this DEFCON, is that you've been talking about things that are germane to each different conversation. So how, as far as, and there is no, I'm sure that this is an open-ended question, but as far as, moving forward outside of this event, right, outside of this specific circumstance, kind of what would that look like to you if you could imagine, like a more engaged security community? Is it, it's not, say, for instance, necessarily like writing to congressmen or what have you.
Sometimes it is, right? And we will get engaged, right? SOPA PIPA. There was a time when a lot of us got engaged.
That was great.
We recognized that would be a freaking disaster. There are Fights for the Future is a good group to mobilize us. EFF mobilizes us. Access Now, Epic. All these organizations that do this kind of good work. I think about the fact that the villages are isolated. A lot of things I think about are at the intersection. I like generalists. I like people who straddle. And the villages are kind of isolating, so maybe we need to have villages combine more, have joint events. And that is how we're going to do things. The fact that everything is here, I think, is fantastic. But there's lots of ways to engage. And it's all about communities. I think we mentioned about being human. I think it's going to be interesting to see what being human is like in a world of artificial humans. I think a lot of us are seeing that in in social media, where a lot of it's being overrun by bots talking to bots. And this is why we're retreating to private discords and signal groups and sort of all the ways that we can be with our community that isn't invaded either by the surveilling companies or the bots. I think we're going to do more of that. So anything we can do to let regular people do that easier. Discord's doing well, and I like that. Slack for people who don't like Slack, which is great, right?
Yeah.
And lots of vibrant communities there. It's hard, right? And those of us who've been around since Usenet days kind of want that back, but it was a really different world, and we're not going to get that back. It's like I can't have a fun comments section in my blog anymore.
Oh yeah.
And there were years when I couldn't. There were many years when I just hired someone to moderate it. But we're kind of past that, and that's frustrating. But I don't know what we do about that. We have to just go forward and not hope for the back.
Yep.
Who here was on the Berkman Center mailing list? All right, so very few. Right, an example of a really powerful community that we lost during COVID and is just never coming back.
So, I've obviously had the benefit of being able to ask you a ton of questions, and I want to open it up to the remaining, to everyone else.
I'm happy to answer questions. Yes.
Sure.
I will repeat questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
I hear your statement to encourage people to get into public interest tech, and then we look at the environment around us. The hiring environment sure might be a bit diminished right now, but compensation still wildly outpaces.
Right, so it's about public interest tech and compensation. That's true. That CISA in the U.S. had, I forget what it was called, but they were paying people more than government salaries because you just can't get good people otherwise. Yep. So back when we had a functioning government, there was this attempt to fix that. But you work for NISA in Europe, and they try to be more competitive. It is never as good as working in industry. But again, public interest law. Right? ACLU has a job opening for a public interest attorney that pays a quarter of what you get working for a big company. They get hundreds of applications. Right? There are people who want to do that and are willing to forego the salary. But yes, I mean, you're not going to make as much working for Human Rights Watch as you will working for big tech. But you're like, maybe you'll sleep better at night. Right? I mean, there will be some of us want to do that, and maybe not full time. Sorry, maybe not for a full career. Maybe for a couple of years. And in public interest law, that is valued. When you go to a law firm, it is valued that you spent a couple of years doing public interest law, doing housing law, or immigration law, right? Or sort of any of that, those law clinics that are doing public interest law. It is not as valued in big tech. And I want it to be valued. I want it to be that you leave Apple and you go do this for 2 years, and then you go back to Apple and they are really impressed at this, and that helps your career. And that's going to be changing the ecosystem. There are people who do it part-time, and there are people who do it like as a sabbatical gap. That, and I want all of that to be possible. Yes?
Yesterday, you mentioned some of the AI math problem solvers were basically showing examples and counterexamples, kind of saying AI is not creative, it's basically repeating us.
Okay, so this is...
Just quickly, and going back to the first topic of the conversation about AI, attacking more and more,
Right.
then we need more defenders against this new beast, right? My question is actually is in the point of, do you think that the search space will end and the defenders will kind of like win this wave?
So mention something I said about yesterday on the panel about AIs doing mathematics. Right? There have been several papers we've seen recently, cryptanalytic results, some math results on both OpenAI and Anthropic. And I'm writing a piece right now, and it'll appear in a couple of weeks, on these results and what they say about the AI's limitations today on doing this kind of creative work. It's really interesting that most of the results are effectively search results. Find a counterexample. And what the AI is doing is not developing new math theory, but searching places that humans haven't searched and not giving up. And it's really interesting to me. So he's asking a parallel, how does this work for cybersecurity? Is there going to be some limited search space for looking for vulnerabilities or attacks to where the AI is going to be able to say, okay, I'm done, and not be able to make the leap to inventing a new type of vulnerability? I think that's largely true today, and that's why you'll hear a lot of us say that maybe we're going to move to a world where vulnerabilities are a thing of the past. The AI is going to find them all. When a new class shows up, the AI will find them all. Well, here's a new class, and then in an hour, oh yeah, I found all those vulnerabilities, they're gone. I found them and patched them. We're done. And so I think we still need humans to do that kind of creative work. Will that change? I mean, this is just summer of 2026. Like, I know nothing about fall of 2026, let alone 2027. So we'll see. But right now, in the sciences, we do see that limitation. And it's probably the same across the board. You back there.
What do you think about alignment research?
I'm a big... so I gave a lot of talk about the AI genies. That's the way I think about this. Like, does the AI not just do what you want, but do it in the right way? I think this is really important. I think this is hard. And on the one hand, the AIs are being trained on humans, so they're going to do human-like bad things. And how do we get them? How do we get them to do the good things? Is I think is really hard. I mean, AI is a power enhancer. It enhances the power of people who use it. If you as a human want to use AI for good, AI will help. If you as a human want to use AI for bad, AI will help you as well. All right, so we're not going to, it's going to be hard to fix that. I want more research. I mean, I think it'll be impossible to solve but so's prompt injection, and we're a lot better than we were. And I think that'll be the case for this kind of alignment research. I worry more about the training data.
Yeah.
You think about what AI is trained on, right? Human speech. It's trained on two types of conversation. It's trained on the best of humanity, right? Our literature, our books, our academic papers, like newspaper writing, right? The best of our writing, and it's trained on Reddit and 4chan, like the worst of our writing. Right? What it is not trained on is every conversation happening in this building. Right? The vast majority of human interaction is ad hoc, face-to-face, person-to-person conversation. And the AI has no visibility on that. I mean, maybe it gets an episode of Friends, which is totally not the way normal people communicate. And there's a frontier there that and companies are trying. There's one company that pays you to like let it eavesdrop on your phone calls or your Zoom. There's a company that searches for Zoom meetings that are unprotected and grabs that for training data, right? So there's a recognition there's a hole here. I think it is an extraordinarily large, important hole. And we're not going to get aligned AI until that hole is plugged somehow. Right? That AI being trained on the vast majority of our conversations. Yeah.
How do we hold AI accountable to?
How will we hold AI accountable? I mean, so the only reason it's hard is these companies have power. Why is Elon Musk not in jail for child porn? It is illegal to possess child porn. Like, why isn't this easy? Why isn't OpenAI being arrested under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act? What they did was much worse than what Robert Morris did. And the reason is power. So, I mean, we have all the laws to hold AI accountable. And the way I think about it is, it's your dog. The way the law works, if your dog runs out of the house, runs out of your yard, runs down the block and bites somebody, you are liable. You are not allowed to say, it wasn't me, it was the dog. The dog escaped confinement. It wasn't my fault. It's your freaking dog. And we live in a world where it's your dog. So it's your AI. And that's actually the only reason this is hard is power. It is not hard because of the law. The law is very clear. But, you know, we kind of allow this tech washing to obscure liability. So it really is enforcing law. I heard that the French are thinking about enforcing their child porn laws on Grok. That'd be awesome. But I mean, I don't think. I mean, this shouldn't be hard. We are nowhere near a world where the AI is autonomous, or if it is, it's autonomous like your dog is autonomous. Yeah.
My mom just turned 80, and I joke that she's finally old enough to run for Congress.
Hear, hear.
How do we deal with a legislator that doesn't understand that Facebook's making money through ads?
So the question is about legislators, and they're old and out of touch. All right. So normally in our society, we give legislators staffs. I mean, we expect. It's just an interesting thing about democracy. We expect that congressperson to vote on aviation policy, housing policy, foreign policy, defense policy, tech policy. And they have an expertise in one of those things, maybe zero of those things. and we give them staffs. To the extent we can do that, that would be good. To the extent that this is all an exercise in us versus them. And, you know, so we only have like 2 bits that we can tell our elected official every time we vote for them. Sometimes it's 1 bit. I mean, 2 bits if you're lucky. And so that's a limitation of democracy. I like it that the young insurgents are taking on the Democratic Party. I mean, they did that with the Republican Party to some extent. This is hard. I mean, and it's a problem with our system. And this is not the way the system was intended. This is a hack of the system. This permanent governing class. It was always meant that you would go into politics and go out of it. Like it would be something you would do, like I'm talking about doing tech and policy. It was not intended to be this way. Just like, lifetime judges made sense in a world where humans died in their 60s. And it doesn't make sense in a world where humans die in their 80s and 90s.
What security problem do you think the industry is underestimating today?
Question about the industry underestimating tech? I think that we, in general, we overestimate the effects of tech in the near term and underestimate the effects in the long term. I think that's what we generally do. Like we think this will change everything in 2 years, just like everyone, like I bet a lot of people think AI will change everything in 2 years. It's not going to. But in 20 years, I think everything is going to be unrecognizable. But we have trouble thinking that way. Tech really universally overpromises. So I think it's better to have some skepticism. I mean, those who embraced, AI is going to write all the code, fire the programmers, are realizing their mistake. And I don't know. I'm staying at the Rio. I don't know what to tell you. They have when I call their customer service line, AI answers. And it doesn't say it's an AI, which pisses me off. But, it worked. I needed to know where something was. It told me. So, it's replacing some jobs. I didn't care for that, but, it's what it is. It's hard to know if we are, I don't think we're underestimating near term. I actually don't. I think we're underestimating long term. I want companies to have a strategy here, but it's hard because the tech is changing all the time. Anybody who had an AI strategy for 2023, throw it away. Throw it away. You had it in 2025, you probably should throw it away. So what good is a strategy if it lasts 2 quarters? And I don't know, we're not good as a society at being that reactive to stuff that fast. Yes?
Kind of dovetails right into my line of work and my career. So how would you, if strategy is useless 6 months after you've made it, how would you direct a company to have the right footing to be nimble enough?
Right. So the question is, right, what do you do if strategy is useless? I think what you said about nimble is important. You have to be flexible. And that's been true for a while. Flexible companies do better. But I think it's really important now that you have to be very flexible. I think the large companies are going to do worse because they're just not as flexible. And it is sort of interesting to watch the big behemoths sort of struggle to stay relevant. And whether it's Facebook or Google, so any of these big tech companies that just can't seem to do anything new, right? And that if they have a new thing, it's because they bought it. That's how they're going to try to stay flexible, right? I mean, it's worked for Cisco for decades, right? You don't invent anything; you just look around and you buy stuff, and then your strength is marketing, is getting it out there, is distribution. I don't know how that's going to work here. It might not, but I think if we can't predict, we have to be able to react quickly. I think that's going to be the key, and I'm not sure how to do that. I mean, this is why I'm not in a big company, right? Because it's not my thing. Yes.
How does the democratization of large language models, AI, both similar and differ from the democratization of PC, personal computers back in the 90s? And
is the question about democratization of AI, how's it different than democratization, let's say, PCs in the 90s? I think there's a lot of similarities. It's going to be much more democratic. Democratization of PCs meant about a dozen PC manufacturers. Democratization of AI means there's going to be 1 million AIs. And that's just a really different sort of animal. But this also means that there's whatever horrible thing you can imagine AI doing, someone's going to make a model optimized for it. I mean, it's just like there's like a subreddit for everything. there'll be an AI for everything. And, right, that's going to be hard. I mean, because the pro-anorexia AI is going to be out there, and we're not going to be able to kill it. We're not going to be able to kill it. We can do things to make it a little harder to find. We could demand that Google not return search results, but it's going to get passed around. Mm-hmm. So how do we deal with that world? Where whatever the awful thing is, just like right now, whatever the awful thing is, there's a community for it. Might be a little hard to find, but there's a community for it. There's going to be an AI for it, and I don't know how we deal with that. I actually don't know, but I think that's the world we have to think about.
So, some elements of the U.S. government are less open, less affected by policy, things like that. So, the defense industries, as an example, compartmentalization. You see adoption. Palantir making a lot of moves in that space. He's the one that decides policies. So, do you have any thoughts or advice for people in that world trying to be able to change what they see?
So if you get the question right, it's really it's sort of about tech making policy, and we know this is true, right? That it almost doesn't matter what the law is. The policy of how Facebook works is how it works. That tech is very, very powerful, and this is this is Larry Lessig's point that code is law. Right, that I don't know if anyone remembers Friendster. And Friendster had, you had as many friends as you wanted, but there were the top 8, and the top 8 appeared on your homepage. And because some programmer decided it should be 8 and not 10 and not 16 and not 4, high schools all over the planet, who your top 8 friends were suddenly mattered. Right? It's a really interesting example of a random programmer making a random decision that affects friendships of teenagers all across the planet. And tech does that. Right? Tech really influences policy. Right? If Google decides you're not high in their search results, you're out of business. And it's not malicious, it's just the way this works. This, I think, is hard, and I don't know how to fix it. I want it through good law. So EU just had 2 rulings against Google. One of them about AI, one of them about, I think, the App Store, which forcing them to be open. Right? And that is a way to limit Google's power over what the law should be. They have it in the U.S. because the U.S. doesn't make tech policy. But if a jurisdiction is willing to make policy, you can rein in tech. I mean, the best thing we can do is to break up the tech monopolies. Sorry.
Fine.
But, I mean, the notion these companies do everything is really bad. And we all have much worse tech choices because the companies are so big. Because there isn't competition. I mean, if there were 200 social media platforms and they all had to interoperate, it'd be a much better world than if there are 4 and they don't interoperate. But we don't have that. But we could. Is there a hand over there?
Yeah, I think Rags had one right up
I
here.
don't see your hand behind him.
Let's
You
see.
got to raise your other hand. Good.
It's possible that the next great advances that AI facilitates are going to be based on the private work that we're doing. How should we as individual citizens think about the pragmatic balance between our privacy and collective good in our...
Okay, so the question is about AI and our data and our privacy versus collective good. So this is the fundamental tension in any privacy argument or discussion, and so there are lots of examples of it, right? I mean, I use turn-by-turn directions, and that is based on everybody who uses turn-by-turn directions being under surveillance. That's how that works, but it's an enormous public good. Right? I mean, what Facebook will tell you is that we will deliver advertising of things you want, but that requires us to watch everything you're doing. I think there's an enormous advantage to humanity to taking all of our medical data, putting it in one massive database, and letting the AIs at it. yet yikes, that's incredibly private. So we're constantly balancing. Right? Data is incredibly personal and private, yet there is enormous public good to be had from putting it together. How do we deal with that? Well, a lot of different ways, and it depends on the details. For Apple Maps, Google Maps, maybe we say, look, you can only sample 1 out of 10, and you have to sample it, and it's anonymous, and you delete it after 10 minutes. Right? That feels like a reasonable trade-off. They'll be able to produce the turn-by-turn directions. They can aggregate it and use it for history. They only sample, and it's anonymous. I just made that up, right? But there's a way we can balance. But for medical data, that doesn't make sense. So maybe the medical solution is, it is kept by a government lab, and that you as a researcher have to submit your research question. It is done inside some kind of clean room, and you're able to do your research, and you can take your results out. I just made that up, and that's a different way to do it. Right? So depending on what you're doing, there's going to be some different way to balance that public versus private. For AI, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. I mean, maybe anonymity is going to be a way we can do it. Maybe it will be sampling. Maybe it will be highly regulated use. Maybe there will be compensation. I truly dislike the giving U.S. equity stake in AI companies. It's a terrible conflict of interest. I mean, think about how governments raise money. We do not take equity stakes in companies because that means we pick winners and losers. We tax. We don't care who wins. We don't care who loses. We get a cut. So those who think about an excise tax for AI companies, that's the way to think. Right? Don't be in the position of picking winners or losers. That is not government's job. That's capitalism's job. Government's job is to take a rake off the top to fund everything that makes all that money making possible. So, right? So there's going to be, I think of it as the AI dividend, similar to Alaska and their oil dividend. That the way to think about it is we're gonna charge these companies 10% of gross receipts. Not of profits, because then they will cheat, right? But of gross receipts, and that's going to be used to fund all the ways that our stuff has been taken. The problem is our data is not valuable individually. And this is Facebook's issue. I mean, they could pay you for your data, but it's like $6. I mean, that's what it's worth.
Yep.
But in aggregate, it's worth an enormous amount of money. So, but there's a lot of public good. If we could bill Facebook $6 times the planet, a lot can be done with that. That's good for the planet. So that's the way to think about that.
And we have time. Yeah, we have time for one last question.
One last question.
And Rags has been very sorry.
Okay, you're
Yep.
So Bruce, thank you, by the way, for decades of formal and informal advice to the Department of Defense, Department of War. So the current context, the Department of War has a above the fold AI first policy and approach. And I'd like you, if you could, riff on what advice you would give the department, you give to Pete Hegseth tonight, with respect to.
Can we pretend
AI
it's an intelligent person?
Please.
Pick me another. All right, I'm going to pretend the DoD is normal.
Okay.
And has normal leadership and is doing normal things.
Okay.
All right. That makes this a question that is answerable.
State your assumptions.
Right. Okay. The question was about AI first. Problem is it's contextual. So let's talk about automatic decision making. That is not new in wartime. A landmine is automatic decision making. Right? Before that, a punji stick is automatic decision making. Do you know that the phalanx, so that kind of R2-D2 shaped thing on the side of the U.S. ships, that has a fully automatic mode. You turn on the mode and it will shoot down anything in the sky it detects. I believe that mode has never been used. But that mode exists because we can imagine a situation where a ship might want that mode. Right? So we build that in. We build in systems where there's autonomous decision making and autonomous lethal decision making. So AI is just walking down this path. It is in a sense no different. And now the question is, when do you turn it on? Right? And we can imagine like a tactical defense situation where it's going to be turned on some machine gun nest. And maybe it has some IFF system, so it's a little bit smart about it. But maybe it doesn't. Right? We can imagine smart bombs where we say, go over there where everything's jammed. This is what targets tend to look like. Go find yourself a target and detonate next to it. Right? I mean, this is not implausible. On the other hand, we can imagine AI making targeting decisions to say, hey, wait a second, we're going to want a human to review it so you don't accidentally bomb a girls' school. And of course, and we know that we know the story there. That was based on old information that was obsolete and wasn't checked, right? But there, maybe, and I think hopefully, there was like 10 hours between when the AI generates a target list and when things have to go boom. That humans can start looking at that. And rules of war talk about this. Right? There are rules about these sorts of things. And the rules don't say that civilians never die, because it's not the way war works. But there are, things that we have to do, if we want to be, someone who does just war. I mean, my personal definition of U.S. exceptionalism has always been that we will be more moral than everybody else.
Yep.
That yes, we get it, that you, the other side, are immoral and going to do the bad things. We're not doing that. We're going to be more moral. We're going to do the checks. We're going to limit what we do. And we're going to beat you anyway. Because that's what the U.S. does. And we're not that. We might never have been that. But that is always my aspiration when I hear the term U.S. exceptionalism. That it is our responsibility to be a more moral country on the planet, to be an example for everybody else. And we could do that with AI policy. We could do that with AI in government, in the military, in war. And it doesn't mean don't use it. And it doesn't even mean that there'll be some times where it isn't AI first. But it means it's not going to be AI only, and it means we're going to figure out what that mix looks like. And that's going to change. So I'll end with this. So I did write a book on AI and democracy in the fall. People don't know it. Largely optimistic, full of really great democracy stories. And I address this not in a military setting, but in AI making benefits decisions. Like, how do we think about an AI making benefits decisions where it can exclude people wrongly? And I say, well, you do this in stages. And the problem right now, U.S. Social Security disability takes 2 years for a human to make a decision. That's the problem. Well, we can help use AI to solve that. So here what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the AI, go look at all these, and you're only ever allowed to say yes. Just go through the 2-year backlog and clear out the easy yeses. And if you say yes and it turns out you're wrong, too bad, the person gets the benefit. Right? We're only letting it make errors to be false positives. Sorry, right, we're never allowing it to make false negatives. Anything you don't know about is a hard case, kick over to the human. All right, so I'm now using the power of AI and I'm not harming anybody. And then as it gets better, maybe you let it make some easy no's and you have a right of appeal. And then you have some human review once in a while. Then maybe you give it some of the hard cases and see if it does better than the human or advises the humans. I mean, it's going to be the same way for any of these times when AIs make decisions. Figure out the difference between the false positive, false negative, which is more harmful. Don't let it do the harmful one first. And then as it gets more experience, maybe ratchet up how it works. I mean, someone told me that DEFCON gets about, 1,000 submissions for talks and it takes about 100? I bet an AI could eliminate half of those talks because they're pretty easy. This doesn't belong here. That's my guess.
No shelling, yes.
Right? And maybe that's okay.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yeah. And real quick, I feel like I missed out on advocating as strongly as I should for our friends up on the Policy Village as well. Bruce has been hugely involved in a lot of those conversations. Please feel free to go up there and engage with them on ways that you can further engage as well. Things like Hackers on the Hill and everything. Just thank you, Bruce.
Thank you all.